Should we talk about that? Because I think that's probably one of the greatest decisions in the history of Hollywood.
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and Kevin Feige just gave an interview to Variety that dropped some huge new details about the future of the MCU. And get this, he's also claiming that they were planning on dumping Kang for Robert Downey Doom way before Quantumania was even released. So I want to go through every new detail he dropped, including updates on Spider-Man, Blade, and also explain his plan for the new rebooted MCU after Avengers Secret Wars. There's some things in here that I do not agree with, so I'm going to be venting to a couple of friends, Colton Ogburn and Tommy Bechtold, about this. And remember to check out our Fantastic Four parody merch linked below, including Clobber in Time, Flame On, the Fantastic Four Crossing Abbey Road, Fantastic Four the Jetsons, and many more. So first, let's discuss Kang. Marvel spent the entire series of Loki setting him up as this new huge big bad for the multiverse saga, and then they teased that there were actually thousands of the guy in the post-credit scene of Quantumania. But you remember, Jonathan Majors was arrested on assault charges and eventually fired, causing Marvel then to pivot to Doctor Doom. But now Kevin Feige is saying, quote, even before what happened to the actor, we had started to realize that Kang wasn't Thanos. We had started talking about Doctor Doom even before we officially pivoted from Kang. In fact, he says, I started talking with Robert about this audacious idea before Ant-Man 3 even came out. Personally, I think there's like a half-truth in there.
You calling me a liar?
I ain't calling you a truther.
If Quantumania would have been a giant hit, I think they would have kept Jonathan Majors. And also, as a fan of the comics, I disagree. Kang could have been a Thanos-level threat. After all, he is the master of time, and he could constantly defeat the Avengers before they even knew they were under attack. But Kevin Feige also dropped details about why Blade is taking so long to make. Remember, they first announced this movie back in the summer of 2019. Now, a few weeks ago, we actually interviewed Sinners and Ironheart producer Sev Ohanian on our Crossover Universe podcast, and we broke the news that Blade was at one point going to be a period piece.
I'm not sure what the schedules of that, but at one point that movie was going to deal with, and she's talked about this before, but at one point that film was going to deal with the past.
By the way, guys, the podcast is going great. We have everyone from TV producers to authors and comic book writers, just a cross-section of people whose work we love. You can subscribe below, Crossover Universe Podcast. So Feige elaborated on our Blade news, confirming that there were 4 versions of Blade in development, including 2 that were set in the 1930s, but now they are focusing on a modern-day version. And he also acknowledged the production delay, saying, we didn't want to put a leather outfit on Ali and have him start killing vampires. Now that's really interesting because I thought they would essentially, tell the story the same way as the Wesley Snipes films. But the delay is because they're trying to do something different with the character. Feige said, you can start and have a good script and make it a great script through production, but we didn't feel confident we could do that on Blade. We didn't want to do that to Mahershala, and we didn't want to do that to us. I mean, guys, that's pretty great news. He basically just said there that they start filming movies before the script is done, but they're not going to do that with Blade. I mean, how many Marvel productions have we seen that have these unfinished scripts and sloppy visual effects because they were rushing to meet some deadline, because everything has to interconnect? We don't have that problem with Blade. I mean, compared to a behemoth like Quantumania, Blade is relatively unconnected to the rest of the universe. And because it's supposedly going to have a lower budget, it's going to be easier to film. I mean, look, Marvel taking their time to wait on the right script is more in line with James Gunn's new DCU, which will only film projects when they know a script is ready. But the real bombshell from the Variety article is when Feige revealed they were going to streamline this universe after Secret Wars. So, Doug, where are you?
I am here. I am standing guard. Do not enter, robbers. Woof.
Doug, stop it. You don't have to stand guard anymore because now we have Simply Safe Home Security, the sponsor of this video. Guys, this is a true story. I have had my house broken into before, and it sucks. We even had an alarm set, but the thieves still had time to grab some stuff on their way out, and they trashed the place. Getting robbed makes you feel vulnerable and invaded, and I wish I had Simply Safe back then. Now, I have never seen an alarm system like this before. Simply Safe Active Guard Outdoor Protection stops intruders before they get inside. They do this by using advanced AI monitoring and live agents to detect suspicious activity as soon as people step on your property before they break in. Here, look.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Ah! But how do they know who is friend and who is foe?
Well, that's a good question. See, it identifies familiar faces and even, like, say, neighborhood dog walkers.
They know Reggie? All right, I will surrender my post.
The thing is, guys, I don't want any of you to feel violated like we were after our break-in, so I highly recommend SimpliSafe. Save 50% off your SimpliSafe security system when you sign up for a professional monitoring plan, and you get your first month for free. Visit simplisafe.com/ScreenCrush to customize yours. There is no safe like SimpliSafe because their security system can include items like smoke and carbon monoxide sensors, smart locks, water detectors, inside and outside cameras, and more. You can monitor the cameras straight from your device. It's easy to arm or disarm, and plans start for as little as $1 a day. And they have a 60-day satisfaction guarantee with no long-term commitments or cancellation fees. So again, to get 50% off your SimpliSafe system, click our link in the description and be safe. Now, back to what I was saying. So one refreshing aspect of this interview was how candid Feige was about the studio's problems. The last few years haven't been great for Marvel. They've had a string of bombs, the Marvel's Brave New World and Thunderbolts, and their own movies are even acknowledging the franchise's problems.
No. With the whole multiverse thing, it's not great. It's just been miss after miss after miss.
And let's face it, the interconnected nature of the TV shows ended up creating homework for audiences. For instance, Feige acknowledged that the Marvel's box office failure was a wake-up call for the studio, saying that moviegoers' unfamiliarity with Disney Plus characters like Ms. Marvel and Monica Rambeau prevented people from wanting to see the Marvels. It started to feel like homework. And Feige also added that Brave New World struggled because, quote, it was the first without Chris Evans. And then Feige added, Thunderbolts was a very good movie, but nobody knew that title, and many of those characters were from the shows. There was a residual effect of audiences going, well, I guess I have to see these other shows to understand who this is. And then Feige said that Marvel's expansion devalued the brand, but he has a new strategy going forward. He said that the next phase would have, quote, fewer and higher quality movies, numbering anywhere from 1 to 3 movies annually with less connectivity between the films and TV shows. Which, look, I'll be honest, I'm not super jazzed about this, and I'm going to talk to Tommy and Colton to vent just a little bit.
Wait, what's wrong with that? It's like Jerry Maguire. Fewer clients, less money.
Yeah, but then he added, we'll be down to a single live-action show a year, and that is the part I don't like. Like, Marvel's best year for TV was 2021 when they put out 4 shows. I think they can handle putting out more shows a year, just, you know, take your time and do it right and don't rush stuff out like She-Hulk. But they're also not going to have a stern rule to never cross over movies and TV shows. For instance, John Bernthal's Punisher will appear in Spider-Man Brand New Day, even though he originated on Netflix. In fact, Feige glowed about Spider-Man Brand New Day, saying it's our first chance to see Spider-Man just being Spider-Man and not dealing with any huge end-of-the-world threats. But I think the biggest news is what Feige revealed about the future of the MCU. He said they have movies and TV shows mapped out until 2032, but he acknowledged that post-Avengers Secret Wars, they are going to restructure the cinematic universe. He said, reboot is a scary word. Reboot can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. Reset singular timeline. We're thinking along those lines. And he also said that classic superheroes will get new actors to play them, saying, quote, X-Men is where that will happen. So this is all pretty huge news, and there's a lot of really hopeful stuff within this interview, but I'm also a little bit pissed off about a couple of things. In the event, I brought on 2 of my friends. We have Colton Ogburn, the guy who's trapped in our television but doesn't know it, so please don't tell him, and Tommy Bechtold, the guy who is always on break. So guys, you read the same Variety article that I did, and we got a lot to talk about, right? I want to get through Blade, Spider-Man, Kang, the new timeline, and these incredibly stupid TV show plans that they have. First, I want to know, what do you guys think about what he said about Blade?
I mean, I think it's kind of he's dipping into the James Gunn cauldron of like, we're gonna get a prepared script. Listen, we're not just gonna freewheel and wing it, okay, guys? Even though that's what we've done for all of our massive tentpole movies, you know, basically start filming before a completed script is even conceived of. I mean, it's a very safe answer to kind of continue kicking the Blade can down the road, in my opinion.
Well, it's funny because he did say in the interview, I didn't talk about it earlier, but he said, he pushed back on James Gunn, basically saying that Marvel went in without finished scripts.
Yeah.
But in this same interview, he acknowledges that sometimes they have a script that's good enough and they refine it as they go. So Colton, how about that?
Okay, I adore Kevin Feige. I'm about to do some huge defending of Feige, I think, when we get into the Kang topic. That pissed me off. I was like, that is such a just horseshit thing to say, trying to defend the fact that you go into production without, you know, a fully completed script. I mean, I kind of agree with the angle of I'm never fully satisfied. Like, I understand that even on the small level that we produce things. Like, there comes a point where I just have to hand over a script, or I just have to hand over a video.
We haven't made a good video in 6 years. Everybody knows that. So yeah, I agree with you on that.
This is being rewritten.
How long
as
have
you
I
guys
been
are
here? About
talking.
that long?
Yeah, I know, roughly. You came on board, and then you've read the comments. You know this already.
Yeah. As far as Blade goes, I hate for this to sound like, the super like obvious thing to say, but one, I think Feige, quite frankly, as successful as he is with the Infinity Saga, he's one of the greatest movie producers in Hollywood. He'll go down as an all-time great. The Blade thing is embarrassing. It's at the point that it's just kind of embarrassing, honestly. Like that many directors and scriptwriters dropping in. It's just gotten to the point where I'm wondering why he doesn't just come out and say, hey, we're going to let Ryan Coogler do this. I feel like that is the most obvious answer to the question.
But in the interview, he said, no, he's doing Black Panther 3. So maybe they'll have him produce it, but because he's a great producer. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
about Seb about that when he was on.
I mean, they've put it off this long.
Yeah, it's true.
I just to kind of go back to what we initially said, there is something to me like the idea of working with a living document as a script can be exciting in the right hands, right? Like the fact that Marvel's willing to evolve things as they're being filmed, because if you trust it, then you trust that it's because they're changing things because they're setting up bigger and better things in the future. To look at it simply, it's easy to just be like they're unprepared, or they're being they're going willy-nilly, or they're just winging it. But there is some proof that they've made some pivots mid-production that have been beneficial, right? Like
Iron Man.
Yeah.
The icing problem was done in post-production, right?
Tommy thinks that scripts are like a living, breathing document. And
I think they should just be ChatGPT.
They're like the Constitution, according to Tommy.
I don't know.
So, kind of buried in this, though, there was a line, and I'm going to paraphrase Feige here, where he said, the cool thing about Spider-Man Brand New Day is that it is our time getting to see Peter just be Spider-Man, which is what they teased at the end of the movie. Now, for people who don't follow this stuff in the minutia like us, that seems like no big deal. But remember, there were all these rumors a couple years ago that there was this big push and pull. Sony wanted another big multiversal movie. Marvel wanted a really grounded Spider-Man movie. And just from what he said there, and the fact that now Spider-Man Brand New Day is coming out before Avengers Doomsday, it seems like we're getting it. It seems like we won. We won. We finally won one, guys.
But how many Madam Webs had to die? What was the cost? Craven, Madam Web. I mean, really, honestly, that is probably what put the nail in Sony's argument, was like, hey, we want these big grand spectacles. We keep putting out, popcorn farts, but we want a big blast of a movie. And it's like, Marvel's like, okay, that's really cute. Madam Web was so atrocious. We're going to do whatever we want now. And Sony probably pretty much had to just say, okay, you guys steer the boat for a while.
And popcorn farts, by the way, was Colton's nickname in high school.
I think they stem from that Madam Web canceled popcorn bucket, right?
That's
they caused the popcorn fart.
That's right.
Oh, man, everything about that movie should have been canceled. But the popcorn bucket especially, that's the one that stole all the Marvel references, right?
Yes.
It had
I still want that bucket.
Stark and shit like that.
Yeah.
Oh, that bucket would be like the holy grail of ironic geek purchases at this point. I think it's great too because it's just so consistent with what was set up already. And I always hated when, like, for instance, X-Men 2 sets up the Dark Phoenix saga, and then we get the Dark Phoenix saga mixed with all this other shit. You know what I mean? I hate when you get this great tease for what's next, or like at the end of Spider-Man 2, and then it gets muddled with all this other stuff to come. We were promised a grounded Spider-Man movie, and dang it, if we're not going to get John Bernthal and maybe a little bit of Hulk thrown in there for fun. I think that's great news. The other rumor was that all the movies and shows that came out in between Doomsday and Secret Wars were going to take place on Battleworld. At this point, I don't think there are any. I think that maybe the Champions, if that's happening, they haven't announced it yet. But otherwise, Vision Quest is, I think, coming out early next year. So, I don't know. It seems like they're really speed running through the end of the multiverse saga, which takes me to this Kang the Conqueror thing that he said. And this is like, the guy should run for office. He's so good at, like, evading answers and erasing the past. He said that even before Quantumania was released, they realized, okay, maybe Kang's not a Thanos-level threat, and they said, well, we do have the rights to Doctor Doom. That I believe. Maybe they even started to see if Robert Downey Jr. wanted to plan. But at this point, remember, there was another director, another screenwriter, attached to these Avengers movies. It was called Avengers: The Kang Dynasty. Quantumania came out. It had a huge post-credit scene that teased thousands of Kangs. Jonathan Majors was all over this saga. And then I do think that after the movie underperformed, they cut bait. But what do you guys think about this? Do you think Feige's rewriting history?
I mean, he could have been sitting at a poker table with Robert Downey Jr. and being like, anyone could be Doctor Doom. That's the great thing about the multiverse, right?
True.
I mean, it's like Hank telling Walter White, what does WW stand for? Willy Wonka, Walt Whitman, Walter White. You know, it's like, he'd be like, you could be Doom. And that could justify his argument as like, I had this thought years ago. I think it was a very political answer, as you said.
I think he did have this thought years ago. I mean, Downey was in the running to play Doom in the Tim Story Fantastic Four movies before he even played Iron Man. Yeah,
No
so I think that I believe Feige. Now, sure, is there some PR, maybe glossing what he's saying a little bit? Sure, but I honestly, and I don't have a ton to back this up, I think that the plan probably always was they would do Kang Dynasty and that Kang would be the villain of that. And I think that Secret Wars was always going to have Doom. I think that they just weren't planning on bringing Doom in until Secret Wars. And then, yes, all the shit happened with Jonathan Majors. Kang was not received well with Quantumania and all that. And they're like, you know what? We've already cast Downey as Doom like 6 months ago. Let's just go ahead and reveal it and, get the contract signed and we'll do Doomsday. So yes, there was definitely some pivoting, some changing that happened, but I do believe him when he says we've kind of always had this in the back of our mind. I don't believe, if he's trying to like make it out like, oh, well, we had the Kang plan, but then we got the rights to Doom, I'd have to look at how that lines up, because they got the rights to Doom in like 17, 18? Okay.
The deal was basically locked in 2017. Yeah. They weren't technically allowed to work on any Fox characters. It was inked in 2018 for real.
Well, then, he has his plans 5 years out. So he may have had his, well, I don't have Doom. I have to plan what we're going to do. We'll do Kang. And then that's settled. And
Kang is set up in Endgame. Just the fact that they're doing time travel, when you mess with time, it messes back. I do 100% think, because you also have to think, like, originally Loki was supposed to come out in 2020, but it didn't because of the plague. So they were going to have, like, they were setting him up. So yeah, maybe the timeline lines up, kind of, sort of, maybe.
Yeah. I think that they were, and I don't want to get too inside baseball on this, like some stuff that I've read, like about what the plot for Kang Dynasty was. But I think it's pretty well known that the same way that they merged the characters of like Kang Prime, like the main Kang, and He Who Remains, the way they kind of merged those two comic characters, I think that they were probably also going to have Kang elevate to a point where he was kind of in the position of the Beyonder in the comics. And sure. Ryan, you're more familiar with Secret Wars than I am. Doesn't Doom like come in and pretty much overthrow the Beyonder and take his power? I think that's kind of what they were setting up.
Secret Wars, that's what happened. So yeah, I mean, it could be. I mean, there's also, if you want to go back to talk about inside baseball, the Infinity War comic, Doom and Kang are running around in the background during that comic, and they are trying to figure out who's behind everything, and they try to steal the cosmic cubes for themselves. So yeah, there's precedence for that, for sure.
So much comic precedent for those two characters being intertwined. So I a lot of people are of the opinion that the second the Majors thing happened, that Kevin Feige and Marvel were just running around, oh shit, the whole office is on fire, what do we do? Let's make Robert Downey Jr. Dr. Doom. No, they have confirmed, the Russos have confirmed, those conversations were being had years ago, and maybe the Jonathan Majors thing just kind of pushed it over the edge. But
I think Quantumania's box office pushed it over the edge. And I was going to say that was Jonathan Majors' fault.
I think the biggest issue with why Kang was ultimately discontinued from the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the performance of the content that the character was in. It had nothing to do with Jonathan Majors. I mean, his portrayal in Loki season 1 was fantastic. And, Quantumania was just kind of a giant mess that people just didn't get excited for. I mean, you can have characters not quite work, but people still get excited about them, and you can continue them on. It just landed with such a thud. I think people just, there's no longer, you can't justify billions of dollars of a franchise on the back of a character that is just not moving the needle enough.
But he was moving the needle beforehand. Like, our theory videos always took off. But you raise a good point about how well he came off in Loki season 1, which I want to go to this thing, the number one thing that pissed me off about this, and it's partially because of what my job is, right? A lot of what we do relies on these weekly Marvel and Star Wars shows. So 2021, I think, is unquestionably the best year for Marvel TV. Now, granted, these were projects that were in development for a while, which had WandaVision, Loki, I'll Stand By Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and Hawkeye, and What If, season 1, which is the best season of that show. So 5 shows, right? 5 shows in 1 year. Everybody was excited for it. They all featured movie characters. Now he's saying they're going to go back to 1 a year, which basically means Daredevil at this point, right? So I'm bummed by that. You know, maybe the Marvels underperformed because it relied too heavily on Kamala Khan and people didn't know the show, or they felt like, well, I'm going to skip that one because I didn't watch everything. But that doesn't mean that there aren't stories that are suited for shows. What do you guys think about this?
I think the best thing Feige could do is find him somebody that he just works super well with, that can be the Marvel television, the Kevin Feige of Marvel television, be the showrunner for all these shows. And that person and Kevin Feige have a meeting every week where they, you know, work in tandem to make sure everything doesn't like contradict one another, but have your 2 separate things. Feige needs to focus on the films. He's a movie producer. That's it. And I think some people don't quite understand. Those are 2 very different jobs. Showrunner and movie producer are, I mean, it's just a different skill set. So I think that Feige would do well to delegate his position over Marvel television to someone else and trust somebody to just take the ball and run with it and have them be 2 separate entities, which is kind of what they're doing with changing it to Marvel television instead of studios. And that way we can
supervised by the movie producers, though. Continue.
Right. Yeah. But I think that's the way to do it. That way Feige is not too overloaded. You can have more TV. We don't have to have immense crossovers, because I know at the time Daredevil was coming out, you know, we were all like, oh, we want Daredevil to show up in Infinity War. But really, when was Marvel television at its best? Yes, Loki and WandaVision were great, but Daredevil, Punisher, all of that I think was great, and it was not super intertwined with the MCU. So I think there's a way for them to tell just good TV shows. There's a quote in the interview where he says, we just need to let TV shows be TV shows. And I completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And yeah, have a little crossover here or there. And that's the importance of, you know, working well together, having kind of what they have at Lucasfilm, the, what is it that Hidalgo like oversees?
Yeah, the story group. Yeah.
Have that, and I think that's the path they should go. I hope that they will reassess. I think they're on the right track of realizing they've been doing too much, but I think the answer to that is maybe not necessarily dialing back, just making sure that you have enough good people to make sure you're not doing quantity over quality.
I agree, but again, I think they can do more than 1 show a year pretty safely.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You know, you look at television networks that are able to put out 20 plus episodes of semi-quality television a year, and then you look at HBO that can spin all these plates and put out all these great series if you have the right showrunners, and I nominate Terry Matalas for that job. But the real bombshell of this interview is he basically acknowledged what we've been theorizing for a long time, which is they're not calling it a reboot, but more of a reset into a singular timeline. Now, the meaning there is no more multiverse saga, so no more this guy lives over here and this guy lives over there. Probably can still have Toby and Andrew in the Spider-Verse films, but as far as these live-action films, they're not going to do multiverse stuff anymore, and everybody's going to live under one roof. Now, obviously, he said they're going to cast new people for the X-Men, maybe not Wolverine, which is weird. It means the Fantastic Four will likely port over to the 616 universe, but I'm wondering what it means for characters like Black Panther. What do you guys think is going to happen in this? How's the new MCU going to be different?
I mean, I for one, with my very simple brain, am relieved to have a little less multiversal juggling to do. I mean, I think the word he used was reset, right? Not reboot. And I think that
yeah.
I think it kind of goes in line with the general, both on page and behind the scenes. They're doing a lot of under promising with what I believe will be an over delivering. Like, they're doing a lot of, like, we're going to simplify. We're simplifying our release strategy. We're going to simplify our storylines. We're going to simplify our universe. And I think that all they're doing is basically just, they are resetting so that they can build out. What it means for characters like Black Panther is probably well, the passage of literal time is going to allow them to age someone in to assume the mantle of Black Panther that might not be T'Challa, right?
T'Challa Jr.
Right. T'Challa Jr. is the obvious choice, and then there's tons of other, I'm sure, Wakandans that would love that mantle. That could be an interesting storytelling. Mm-hmm. I think Disney is playing it very safe right now. They're just saying, like, we're stripping everything down. We're not stripping everything down, but we're going back to basics with this. And then we're going to reintroduce or introduce new characters and new actors. And then I think they'll do whatever the hell they want ultimately, or whatever the general public responds to. Like, yes, sure, they could recast all of the X-Men, or they could recast half of the X-Men, and the X-Men that people really love that are still willing to play those roles could come back and play those same roles. Like, I mean, if you have James Marsden, who is like career has completely reinvigorated over the last 5 years, wants to play Cyclops, it's like, they might let him play Cyclops again. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are getting so old that they just probably don't want to play those characters, and it would behoove you to have a younger Magneto and Charles. But
I think they should redo everybody. I think they should redo Wolverine. I just think,
I hope they do.
Except for Wade Wilson. Wade Wilson.
Yeah.
Because it's going to get to a point where if you only let one guy be Wolverine, and we can all acknowledge Henry Cavill was an amazing Wolverine in the 5 seconds that we got him, right? If you only let one guy ever be Wolverine, then I think it locks you into just like, because I want Wolverine to be on screens for the next 100 years. And I think it'll be a much harder transition if they don't, cut and run. I think keep Hugh Jackman for Secret Wars. Let's finally see Hugh Jackman fight the Hulk and do all these other cool crossover things we've been looking forward to. But then, guys, let's put him out to pasture. Let the guy eat some cake. Mm-hmm. And finally add some body fat.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm super biased. I'd love Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Part of me just says if he wants to do it, then I feel like we have the rest of eternity, or however long before humanity destroys itself, to have movies with a different
7. Yeah,
that's generous. Before. I think.
Yeah, well, I know it's 7 because Kevin Feige said he has a 7-year plan, so I don't think he would bother going to 8. I think we're good for that long.
I think that there is a perfect thing that could happen here where they make another 2 movies with Deadpool. Do Deadpool and Wolverine 2. I want to see that.
I'd be fine with that.
Then I think that frees it up for them to do an X-Men movie without Wolverine. And let the other X-Men shine and do a trilogy of X-Men films. And hey, Daphne Keane is awesome. Have her come in and be that version of Wolverine. As far as the reset goes, I would like to see Fassbender and McAvoy play. Personally, that's me. But I do get your point, Ryan, about needing to reset. I'm glad that we've reached a point where the studio seems to trust the audience a little more and that they'll just understand. So I think the general audiences understand, oh yeah, some of this is new, some of it's the same characters. I think audiences are kind of primed to understand, we've had plenty of movies that tamper with the idea of, the timeline reset, and some things are different now. We've all seen Back to the Future and Terminator. I think people get it. So I think they're going to be able to get away with it. Whereas maybe 10 years ago, had you asked me that, could they do a semi-reboot? I wouldn't be so sure, but I think James Gunn seems to be proving with the DCU that is something they can do. They're pretty much just saying, yeah, some of it's still canon, some of it's not. Who cares? We made a good movie. Yeah.
Well, so people may not remember, this was a problem in the comics. So the Marvel continuity got DC continuity got bogged down. They would just say, fuck it, and cut the universe off and start a new one. There was pressure on Marvel to do the same thing after the Ultimates line came out. It was really popular and it reset the universe. But Marvel said, no, we don't want to throw away. So some fans wanted that. Most fans, though, were like, don't throw away the continuity I've been following. And I think they have to do something that makes it easy and accessible, where it doesn't feel like homework, while also finding a way to continue the franchise. I think grown up T'Challa Jr., I keep using the Simpsons cat joke when Snowball 2, dies and comes back. Not to compare Chadwick Boseman to a cat, but these characters are... Jesus Christ. Well, he's a cat. He's Black Panther.
Well, yeah, he does play. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you. That's why. So, but these characters are immortal, right? These characters will live forever. They're based on myth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And new actors do need to replace them. I wonder, and this is kind of a final thought from you guys, what about the classic characters? Marvel Comics may kill off Tony Stark, but they always bring him back. They may kill off Steve Rogers, but he comes back. I want Anthony Mackie to get his blockbuster. I love Anthony Mackie as Captain America, but eventually when he steps down from the role, don't you want Steve Rogers to come back? Don't we think Kieran Culkin might make a good Tony Stark? Is Robert Downey Jr. going to continue to play Doctor Doom? Where do you guys stand on recasting and continuing on with the classic characters?
You just took everything I was about to say. I was going to say I think Downey continues as Doom if it's received well, and I would love to see Kieran Culkin as Tony Stark. You know, Ryan, I was right there with you. I thought it was a horrible decision that they didn't recast T'Challa. I am big on recast. And going, you know, since we're rounding out the discussion, I'm not huge on this idea that they had so little faith in the character of Kang. I think that the Kang character is a character that, if done right, can be a Thanos. I almost don't like kind of this crutch they're using where they're kind of saying, well, the Kang character, he's just not Thanos. Well, he certainly could be, had you made him be. So
He's a master of time. He shouldn't get his ass kicked by ants.
Yeah, exactly.
And I like Quantumania. I'm the guy who liked it a lot. So there's that.
Yeah.
I would like my Marvel movies, the Marvel movies I watch, to have Captain America, to have the character of Steve Rogers in them eventually. I agree. I think Anthony Mackie deserves a lot more on-screen time as Captain America, but I want Tony Stark back in the MCU. I want Steve Rogers back in the MCU. I want a character that, you know, Mark Ruffalo's going to be in his 60s very soon if he's not already there. I want a younger Hulk, like, you know, just for the sake of the movies having, you know, the opportunity to be another universe. I love the movies that we already have, but I'm ready for new actors to step into these roles in the near future, whatever brief future we have left.
I also just want to say I am super excited for this era of Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, and X-Men, because that was kind of the Marvel that I grew up with. Same. Maybe we're going to see like these Avengers characters kind of take a backseat for a little bit, and we'll get to focus on these guys.
Yeah, and that's really, you know, something I mentioned at the very top of the video. I am so excited to see Spider-Man cross over with the Fantastic Four in the main MCU, because the Fantastic Four are really important to Spider-Man's early days. He wanted to join the Fantastic Four in issue 1. And in issue 3, when Dr. Octopus kicks his ass, he gets like a pep talk from the Human Torch, who came to his high school to speak, and then the two of them become like adversary friends for years. I love that level of interconnectedness to the MCU when it's done right. Other times it's, you know, Bucky showing up for a brief cameo in Brave New World, but I really think that fewer projects is a good thing because it allows those cameos to matter. And we do have to wrap it up there. Thanks again, Colton Ogburn and Tommy Bechtold. You can find, of course, all their social links listed below. Tommy, do you got to go somewhere?
Yeah, sorry, my break's almost over. Apologies.
All right, but we want to know what you guys think about these Feige bombshells. Do you think that they should do a complete reset of the MCU? Would you be pissed? Do we need a new Tony Stark? What do you think of Robert Downey Jr. Doom? And do you think that Kevin Feige is full of BS about Kang? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below, or add any of us on our socials. Or, hey, guess what? You can find us on our free-to-join Discord server. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Harry.